Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall.
Host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Well, hey there. Welcome into the Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks a lot for downloading this. And if I could be so bold as to ask a quick favor, I don't do this often, but if you have a second, do you mind, if you're an Apple Podcast consumer or you're a Spotify user, could you leave a written review and a 5-star review of this podcast? It helps others learn about it and spread the good word. We're so appreciative. And thanks a lot for choosing this show, as you do each and every day, consistently making this one of the top-performing news commentary podcasts out there in the universe of all there is to choose from these days. And I thank our sponsor now for years, John Ruhlman, who has been basically the principal sponsor of this show and has helped so many of you in this audience, most importantly. The reason I love doing business with John and the team at U.S. Medical Plan is because they really help people in this audience. I'm not just talking about people that I've heard from through email. I'm talking about people in my own life. Colleagues of mine, friends of mine, my own parents. I sent my parents to John and his team when they were looking for supplemental insurance with their Medicare. John saved them $400 a month. That's my senior parents, all right? I have a personal friend who had a daughter with some special health needs. He was spending tons of money a month on private health insurance for them. John got him a better plan, saved him $1,000 a month. I have colleagues that have saved hundreds of dollars a month. If you're a small business owner and you supply insurance for your employees, that's a generous thing to do. Is it really expensive? And you're thinking, maybe I can't do it anymore? Wait. Call John. Reach out to his team. They shop with 100 different private health insurers all over the country. If you're an Obamacare user, that is not getting any cheaper this year. I can already tell you it's going to go up, up, up. There are private health insurance companies out there that have much lower rates than you think and cover everything that you need. I know people assume if it's cheaper, it means less coverage. Not necessarily. Or it may be that you have the best coverage going, but you're not going to know until you reach out. Please turn to the team at usmedicalplan.com, usmedicalplan.com, or give them a call today, 877-410-4321. That's 877-410-4321 or usmedicalplan.com. Hey, how about that? Look at that. There that is. After the lightning delay. I went to bed, folks. I got to be honest with you. I quit on it last night. Lincoln Financial Field, all lit up in green this morning as we look across 95. People waking up, passing by, honking their horns, no doubt. EAGLES Eagles. Ed, did you stay up with that thing last night, all night long? Because I couldn't. I mean, the lightning delay came in, and I was like, I'm already pushing it. Sorry. Going to bed. I felt the Eagles ultimately would have it in hand. A little tighter than I think Eagles fans would have liked, but got it done.
Yeah, of course I did stay up. I watched it.
You got to be a zombie. Did you go to bed? When did the thing end?
Like 12:30.
Whoosh.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, so what do you think of that? First of all, the game starts with Tua. Little spit. Little Jalen Carter spit on Cam Newton. What did you make of that? Ejected from the game, and they say there may be more punishment coming for the loogie.
So obviously I was extremely angry. I'm like, what a stupid freaking call on your part. You're a professional now. You got to act better than that.
Star defensive player. The entire defense is built around the guy.
Yes, but NBC didn't show until after the delay that Dak Prescott initiated that altercation.
Is that right?
Yes, so he didn't spit on Jalen Carter. He was, talking smack, and then he, spit in front of him. So Jalen Carter steps up and spits on Dak Prescott, which is, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
All right. So it's another magic loogie thing, much like Emmanuel Cleaver back during Obamacare. All right, we're going to have Loogie Gate now. So Carter is saying Cam spat first.
Well, it doesn't matter. Jalen Carter's definitely going to get that. He got the suspension. He's going to get fined. It could be more time because he actually spat on Dak.
Yeah. A lot of flags last night. I know that the refs have found their flags to kick off the NFL season again. Woo! Most of them went against the Eagles. But undaunted, Jalen Hurts looks good. I do hope he can get the ball, spread around a little bit, because if he's going to be the guy running and scoring most of the season, that could put him in a dangerous position. So we need him to start getting the ball in the hands of some playmakers there for you Eagles fans. It's good to have a running quarterback, but for heaven's sakes, the guy has to do it all himself. Seemed like you put it mostly on his back last night, Ed?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. You're not going to win another Super Bowl if that's what he's doing 8 games in.
But I will say the Cowboys looked far better, far, far better. I don't think anybody expected them to look as good as they did last night, and they did, particularly without one of their big stars. And so, I don't know, Brian Schottenheimer may have this Cowboys team turned around a little bit, at least respectable. We'll see. We'll watch. But anyway, it's underway officially. My Kansas City Chiefs are in Brazil tonight. I'll watch, but under duress. I hate those. I'm sorry. I just don't. When they're in Germany, when they're in Brazil, when they're in Mexico, I just don't want to watch it. I don't want to watch premier athletes paid tens of millions of dollars play in some soccer stadium that was built in, the time of Caesar. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what it is, Ed. I have something against it.
Yeah.
I love Lambeau. I love Arrowhead, but don't take me all the way back to the Roman Colosseum and make them play in that thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't do anything for me.
No, because it's like I understand the global initiative, but NFL football is not a global game. It's just not. It's uniquely American. Our fans are here. We build whole industries around the NFL specifically. So I agree with you, man. I don't need to see it in the biggest soccer stadium ever. Mahomes.
So we'll watch that tonight. But anyway, I also did not know this was a thing, just to get started, and I suppose it will dovetail nicely into the hearings yesterday. Did you know that there are still companies out there that are letting people sit at home and get paid? Like people that formerly were working in the office, and then I don't know, how long has it been now since they told everybody to go home and shelter together or whatever, alone together? 5 years?
I was going to say 2 weeks to slow the spread, so yeah, it would have to be 5 years. Going to 5.5.
There are companies out there that are still in a debate about whether their people need to show up or not over COVID. Is this still real? Now, look, I understand for a time your life was upended. If you were somebody that regularly had a schedule and then everybody said stay home and then things kind of got different and you were like, hey, this isn't so bad. Working from the house, I can get some other things done. The kids can stay here or whatever. Your life kind of altered, and for 2 years or so, let's be generous and call it 3. Let's say for 3 full years, as the economy shook out and things started to level out with the virus, I'll be generous and say 3 years. You were sitting at the house getting used to that situation. Your company is now starting to say, come back to work. We've been talking about this on the show now for, I think, at least 2 years. And I have friends in middle management that have been tasked with trying to get their employees to come back, and many of them, it was the wildest thing. I'll never forget, I think it was last year, I was playing around a golf with a friend of mine, middle management type, and his senior leadership told him, I need you to get all your people back in the office. So he starts dialing up people that he's been working with for years, saying, hey, Janine, I need you to come back in the office starting the beginning of next month. And Janine says to him, I can't do that. And he says, well, what do you mean you can't do that? We've been working together all this time. You always were in the office till COVID. I need you to come back into the office. Her answer, I've moved to North Carolina. What? Yeah, I just left town. I moved. Ed, that's happening by the scores. People are just like, they're not telling their bosses. They just assumed, well, I guess I've been staying home the last couple of years. Let's sell the house, pack up, and move to the lake or whatever. And that's been going on all over the country. Now bosses are saying, I need you to come back. And people are like, sorry, I've completely reconfigured my life and we've moved. I thought I could work remotely forever, which was never the express deal that this was indefinite. But that's the way many people in the country had been behaving. And so people just left. And now I bring this up because there's a Fox Business story that says Paramount's new CEO, David Ellison, issues an ultimatum now. Return to the office full-time or leave. Take your severance and get out of here. There are still companies battling this, Ed.
No, absolutely. And Chris, so I'm a millennial, right? My age and other newer people to the professional world, they're indignant about not coming in. They are indignant about it. I have friends who are absolutely angry that I am like, go back to work, get back to the office. They're angry with me when I confront them about it.
And I always, it never fails when I bring this up. I get hate mail from people whose lives have been bettered personally because they now work from home and it's more convenient for them. They can go to the grocery store, or they can pick the kid up early, or the kid can stay home, or any host of things that make your life easier when you don't have to physically go into the office. I think a lot of people enjoy that. Now, I happen to be someone, I just am not wired to stay at the house and work. I'm not. In fact, when I've had the opportunity to try, I don't know what it is, snow days, COVID was certainly one. I mean, Fast Eddie and I, during the era of COVID, we were deemed, I'll have you know, and a lot of you in this audience don't know that you're listening to, what did they call us? Life-sustaining? Not life-sustaining.
Yes, we were above essential, Chris. We were life-sustaining. You are correct.
Is that what they called us?
Life-sustaining.
We had a government-issued document that said, and I carried it with me in my glove box in the car, that the show was life-sustaining. And so that's why we branded ourselves throughout the course of COVID, that the government had said you needed us to live.
Because it was imperative that you got to the microphone every single morning, and also that there was a piece of glass between us, even though we were in separate studios. Right. But we were there, man. We did it. But
the company, and again, I'm not making fun. At the time, everybody was freaking out. Nobody knew what to do, and everybody was threatening to sue, or I'm going to die. You can't make me go to work. So companies didn't. I totally feel for companies back then trying to figure out how to navigate that. They've got a job to do. They got a company to run, and their employees are all terrified of dying or whatever. And so do they come to work? Don't they come to work? There was a time where they said, where my bosses said, you can just do the show from the house. And I'll have you know, that most of the people in our business back then took full advantage of it and packed their things and ran home and did everything out of their living rooms or whatever. And I happen to be a guy, it's not a brag, I'm just telling you that's the truth. It's the way it works for me. I'm just a guy, I have to physically get up out of my bed, get dressed, and leave my home to do my work. I have to do it. Now, some people, I get it, before COVID, all along their entire professional life, they've been working from home. I'm not castigating you if you're somebody who's always worked from home. It's not about you if you've always worked that way. I'm talking about the people who suddenly, out of nowhere, were given the ability to just stay home and start working. And that had never been the deal heretofore. And then just decided this was going to be my new lifestyle. And now mad that their bosses are saying, okay, no one's dying, no more masks. You don't even need the stupid shot anymore. It doesn't work. Everybody's caught it that's caught it. I mean, whatever, it's a cold. Time to move on now. Come back to work. People are mad. So this guy Ellison, who's running Paramount now, took control of the parent company of CBS, Comedy Central, and the movie studio. Got approved for this big merger. And then he says, I believe that in-person collaboration is absolutely vital to building and strengthening our culture and driving the success of our business. Our people are the key to winning, and being together helps us innovate, problem solve, share ideas, create, challenge one another, etc., etc. I don't disagree. I know the team on the Chris Stigall Show would agree. They love getting up in the middle of the night, gathering together. The look, the happy faces, if you could see them behind the camera and the microphone of the team of people that make up the Chris Stigall Show, who assemble physically every day, they're beaming with excitement being together right now. I wish you could see it. More in a minute. It's Open Line Friday, by the way. Let's go to Judy to kick things off today on Open Line Friday in Pennsylvania. Hey, Judy, glad you called. What's on your mind?
Hey, good morning. It's good to hear you for the first time. I'm enjoying your show.
Thank
RFK,
you very much.
You're welcome. RFK is doing a great job. Great job. My daughter works with PCIC she lives in Hershey and Harrisburg. She goes to the Capitol once a month, and the lockdowns were hard. The last 5 years were hard, and I stood on the River Street Bridge and looked at the Joe Biden Expressway sign in January. And there was a group out there, and there were people from the left and the right that had it. And I think there's a whole lot more people that have had it these days.
And so you feel like he's the embodiment of that, RFK Jr. His testimony yesterday, it was fiery at times. We're going to play some of it coming up. But he's sort of the embodiment of that. We've had it, right? I think that's about right.
Exactly, yeah. Chris.
Judy, I'm glad you called. Thank you. Tell your daughter thanks, too. finding people to work in medicine right now, healthcare, is a tough, tough thing. And quite frankly, I have found that there are a number of people in medicine who just don't like this new era of people stepping up and advocating for themselves. I don't know how to say this, and I don't mean this universally across the board, but people who go and get medical degrees have worked very hard and spent a lot of money, but have often been treated as though they're bulletproof and can never be questioned. Kind of reminds me of the media or college professors. And in medicine, you should be subject to scrutiny just the same as anybody else. And that's the dichotomy right now. More in a minute. I think one of the more salient points made yesterday during all of this kerfuffle about shots and vaccines, and I mentioned this yesterday with a couple of people online and I think on the show, RFK Jr.'s role at HHS has been boiled down to shots. Have you noticed that? Everything's about vaccines. As if the totality of health in this country boils down to whether or not kids should be injected with vaccines. Have you noticed that? And I think it's really critical to draw attention to the fact that the left attacking RFK Jr. always brings it back to shots. That is not all RFK Jr. is talking about. In fact, it's probably not even most of what he's talking about. He's been talking about the food industry, what we're consuming. He went on a tear yesterday that was worthy of a standing O. I mean, 2 straight minutes tearing into the polarization of COVID, the chronic disease that plagues this country. Let's listen to some of this. Number 28 to start.
This morning, I got the latest numbers from CDC that 76.4% of Americans now have a chronic disease. This is stunning. When my uncle was president, it was 11%. 1950, it was 3%. Today, it's 76.4%. 8 out of 10 of our kids cannot qualify for military service. This is a national security issue. When my uncle was president, we spent 0 on chronic disease. Today, we spend $1.3 trillion. It's the biggest cause. It's increasing. And all of the arguments that Republicans and Democrats have about single payer, Obamacare, or the various ways to allocate the health dollars, they're all like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. If we don't end this chronic disease, we are the sickest country in the world. That's why we have to fire people at CDC. They did not do their job. This was their job to keep us healthy.
Thank you,
and I need to fire some of those people to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Now, those stats that he just shared, to my point, 76.4% of Americans now have a chronic disease. 8 in 10 children in this country cannot qualify for military service. Fast Eddie, I ask you, what in that has to do with shots?
Nothing.
Anything?
Absolutely nothing to do with shots, no.
Have you noticed that the media and the left, but I repeat myself, and Democrats all bring it back home to, he's a crazy who doesn't want your children vaccinated. Have you noticed that? Did he say anything about vaccinations in any of that?
None. None there.
No. Furthermore, he's right. Republicans and Democrats alike for years have debated health care. And when they're debating health care, what are they actually debating? Obamacare, health insurance, the health insurance industry, who's going to insure medicine, not what medicine actually costs, not what we're spending on medicine, not whether we need to spend what we spend on medicine, not why we're spending trillions of dollars on medicine. Instead of actually fixing what ails us, we're just treating ailments. We're, as he said, rearranging chairs on the Titanic. So politicians, bureaucrats, big pharma, and the like, what are they doing? They're all making us have fights and debates and discussions about insurance over here and the shot schedule for kids over here. We're not talking about what he just said. We have a national security crisis. 76.4% of all of us have some kind of chronic disease. 8 in 10 children in this country could not qualify for readiness in the United States military if called upon. And they start screaming about shots for kids and Obamacare, as if any of that has anything to do with the broad picture of what he just said. Of course, it does not. health care, as it was often called during that whole debate about the government taking over your health insurance, it never did anything to make health care cheaper. Health care in this country is exacerbated year after year after year by the government continuing to just blindly pay for anything and everything that big medicine and big pharma says they need to pay for. No discussion about what the underlying ailments are or why we're careening, our health is careening off a cliff. Just keep writing the scripts, keep paying for the pharmaceuticals, keep rubber stamping the pharmaceutical products. And as for the media, well, they're not going to be critical of the system because who's feeding their ad dollar revenues right now? It's largely what? People in medicine and the health insurance companies. There's big money to be found in those companies, and I'm not begrudging anybody for making money here. I'm not. But that's the dirty little secret. Watch. I'm not going to name names, and I can't say Look, I'm not going to swear to you on a stack of Bibles that my parent company and this show wouldn't take a nickel from pharmaceutical products. I don't know. Fast Daddy, let's have a conversation, just so I can be honest with this audience later. I don't know if we have a policy on this show, that is our management team and our sales staff. Do we have a policy that we don't take pharmaceutical money or not? I don't know that we have an established policy on that. Do you know?
No, we don't have a policy against that taking those dollars, no.
To my knowledge, and I could be wrong, but to my knowledge, no one in our company at present is cashing Pfizer checks.
No. No, definitely not.
Or J&J checks, to my knowledge.
No.
Now, I can't say with authority we never would, but I can tell you that all the products that relate to your health that I talk about on my show are all natural products. They're not pharmaceutical products. And I would have to have now a serious discussion with myself, to be perfectly honest with you. Revenue in media, like everywhere else, is tight. Everybody's scrambling and fighting for every nickel. So I'm not going to lie to you. If Big Pharma came along, Fast Eddie, and said, hey, we'll cut you a fat check, but you need to knock it off, all of this criticism of the shot schedule and la, 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 la. It would be a conversation, I'll bet you. But in the end, I hope, I'm going to say, you know what, we've been doing fine without your dollars. I think we're going to continue to do fine. That's what Trump's doing politically. I'm out of the kowtowing to Big Pharma because they cut fat checks. Most Republicans on Capitol Hill are not out of that yet, and certainly the Democrats are not either. So the point is, Big Pharma, Big Medicine, Big Food, they do not want to talk about the underlying issues of our health and what's causing our health to degrade. They just want to keep having a discussion about who pays for it. And RFK Jr. sees a big picture, and of course they hate him for it. Now, as to this lie that, well, if RFK Jr. gets his way, kids are going to get more sick. I thought Markwayne Mullen made a fantastic point here yesterday, one of the most salient points out there. On this issue, you've probably heard this. Measles are on the rise. Measles are on the rise. And it's somehow RFK Jr.'s 7 months at HHS that are causing it. But he makes a very solid point here in number 38. Listen.
We don't know anything about vaccines. What we're saying is what Bobby's doing is questioning science.
But you're taking
used to it was okay.
You're
going to
risk
science.
Kids dying of measles.
We're not going to die. We're not taking the risk of measles. We're not anti.
More kids have died of measles in this country this year than in decades.
Well, if you want to get into that, we can talk about the open to southern border and what caused that. Because you had an inflation over 20 million people that came over illegally underneath the Biden administration that wasn't vaccinated. We're not talking about measles outbreaks from kids that were born and raised here inside the United States. We're talking about ones that were brought over here illegally. And you can make that connection. And no one can argue that.
That's exactly right. Harumph, 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 Senator Markwayne Mullen. Going into the lion's den, that dishonest on CNN. More children today than measles. He goes, you want to talk about measles and disease? Let's talk about a wide open southern border for years under that pretend president that you weren't even the least bit curious about. Millions of people pouring across our country. That was always the lie. I think that the open southern border exposed the lie of the left's argument on public health more than maybe any other. If you really think about it, the American left wanted our borders wide open with God knows who pouring over our southern border. Absolutely no knowledge of their health, no knowledge of their vaccine status, no knowledge if they had anything from head lice to measles to mumps to anything else. No knowledge. Just come on in. And then we're going to plug them into rural communities and our kids' school districts. And then we start having outbreaks of disease, head lice, measles, and the like. And the media says, RFK Jr.'s a lunatic. He's getting kids killed. There are more cases of measles. You imported millions of undocumented people. We don't know where the hell they came from or their health status. Disease is now spreading in the country, and you want to say it's RFK Jr. asking, do we need to keep our kids on an aggressive shot schedule? What a dishonest bunch of... This stuff is just pack of lie after pack of lie after pack of lie from these people every single day. It's obfuscation. It's, look over there, look over there, look over there, when the reality is our health crisis is very, very real. This country is getting sicker. This country has been invaded by millions of people whose health status is unknown and likely in many cases highly compromised. They don't have the same health standards we do. And anything they can do to keep you from talking about what are we injecting in our kids? What are we spending on that? Why does it cost that? Why do we need to do that? Why are we just treating illness instead of getting to the root cause of illness? Don't talk about that! Because their budgets, their ad dollars at CNN and the like depend on Big Pharma. More in a minute. All right, it is Open Line Friday today. Your chance to jump in here and talk about whatever you want. It does not have to be on my agenda, all right? So 855-STIGAL if you'd like to. Let's go to Bill, waiting patiently in sunny Florida. Bill, glad you called. Good morning.
I'm a quiver. I haven't talked to you since you made the big time, young man. How are you?
Wow, well, good to hear from you, sir. I'm doing great. How about you?
Well, I'm disappointed, and RFK hit on something talking yesterday about military people that can't serve. My veteran community is letting me down. They're out there whining on social media about how the VA won't spend its scant resources on their fat injections to lose weight in retirement. And that just shows how far we as veterans have slipped, that we can't discipline ourselves anymore to eat less and exercise as you've done. And it's just so disappointing to see veterans who get discounts to eat everywhere all over town on Veterans Day whining that the VA won't pay to help them lose weight with a shot. And it just disappoints me.
That's an interesting... Now, I will say, from what I understand, some people who take this, they are prescribed it for A01C levels or something like that, I think. And so maybe they would suggest that that's... Or their A1C, it's called A1C, I think. Or diabetics, I think, have been prescribed this. You would say, I mean, are there ever instances you think that this shot, what are they called? Ozempic, Mounjaro, that stuff, semaglutide, I believe, is the generic name for the drug. Do you think there are instances where, I mean, it's very expensive. It's like, I don't know, $1,200, $1,500 a month or something, Bill?
There are instances where it's warranted on the medical side, but I'm talking about the guys that literally want the shot to help them lose the weight simply because it's the easier route, no longer disciplining themselves in old age. I'm in old age. I've retired. I've gained and lost weight. But there's a lot of veterans who simply say, boo-hoo-hoo, the VA won't pay for my fat shot. It's not the medical side, the A1C people. It's literally the folks in retirement who let themselves go, and now they want to go to the VA. And the VA does not have all the money on the planet Earth, and that money should not be spent helping the lazy get injections just to lose weight. That is one place that I don't think Veterans Affairs money should be being spent. But there's a lot of whiners
so you
out
can
there
see,
in my veteran community.
Based on what you just said, you can see why a pharmaceutical company, as well as politicians, you can see why they would scream and yell to keep the system intact as is, paying for every last shot for every last veteran, right? It behooves the political class, the bureaucratic class, the big pharma class. It behooves all of them to just keep things going and keep injecting every veteran who wants it just to lose some weight, right? Then it is to tackle it the way RFK Jr. wants to tackle it.
Exactly. It's very disappointing, and I just wanted to get that out there, that some of our veterans could maybe watch the movie Castaway one more time and see that they can lose weight if they want to.
Thank you, my friend. Glad to hear from you, and thanks for your service as always, Bill. Let's go to Indianapolis. Talk to Tom. Tom, I'm glad you called. Good morning. Welcome in.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. I worked up in Chicago in the 70s, and our boss told us there in Old Town, he says, when you roll through Stony Island and you get a flat tire, roll on the rim. I sure hope Pritzker doesn't get a flat tire in Stony Island. You know, they only lost 7 killed last week, you know, and 20 shot or whatever the number. And he's justifying that as okay. It just makes me sick, and I'll never stay at that H hotel again, ever.
I will tell you, Tom, and to your point, I didn't get to this week, but I had it in front of me. From 2018 to 2024, Chicago averaged approximately 654 homicides every year, and a total of 4,580 murder victims. To put this in perspective, during Operation Iraqi Freedom in the Iraq War, there were 4,432 service members killed. During Operation Enduring Freedom, the military campaign in response to September 11, there were 2,354 service members killed. Suffice it to say, writes Chris Tremalia at the Washington Examiner, Chicago is more dangerous and unsafe than actual war zones. Is that not a stunning statistic? 4,580 murder victims. 654 homicides each year for a total of 4,580 murder victims, 2018 to 2024. More than in wars in combat zones. And much like medicine, much like we're talking about. Pritzker said the same thing. Well, big cities have crime. Trump wants to send in the National Guard. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about us being ill. They don't want to talk about people dying in the streets of big cities. Status quo, please. More in a minute.
Excellence in dentistry. That's what you're going to get at Williamsburg Dental. My friend Bob Spinato is back on the phone. He's in Broomall, just off the Blue Route. And with 2 new associates, now you can expand and offer more hours, maybe evening hours, possibly weekends, Bob.
Yeah, one of the things that I told them from early on when they started with me was the value of not only their own time, but other people's times. And they run on a similar schedule that I do. If you've got a 1 o'clock appointment, you're in their chair at 1 o'clock. And it's something that across the board at Williamsburg Dental, we really pride ourselves on, whether it's an appointment with the hygienist or whether it's an appointment with one of our doctors. The other thing is we now have some expanded hours in the evenings, and even there's some discussion about opening again on some Saturdays for services.
Yeah, so, but not you. You're fishing. You're not kidding anybody. It's not you going to be working on Saturday. Come on,
well, dude. I'm in my 33rd year, and it should be the young guns.
That's so right. You've earned it. You've earned it.
I feel like I have. Thank you.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com.
How do you do, folks? Welcome in. It's NFL kickoff week, so we're bumping back with shots of various stadiums around the country. There you are, your State Farm Stadium in Phoenix, Arizona, home of the Cardinals. Thanks for listening on The Patriot. Glad to have you along. Middle of the night out there in Phoenix still. Dark. That's what it felt like watching that Eagles-Dallas game last night. And then the lightning delay. I was like, I got to go to bed. Can't handle these early mornings and late night games. But anyway, glad to have you along here. Our telephone number, 855-STIGAL. It is Open Line Friday. Whatever's on your mind, you can come in and talk about it. A lot of people talking about the testimony yesterday between the hostile, mostly Democrats, although not exclusively Democrats, and RFK Jr. And I was making the point in the previous segment that so much of this conversation continues to get dragged back to shots and vaccine schedules. I find it interesting because that's not the universe of subject matter that RFK Jr. is trying to tackle. In fact, I don't even think it's most, to be perfectly honest. But last night, President Trump had a bunch of tech CEOs at the White House, and a member of the media was brought in and tries to get Trump to go at RFK Jr. on this shot stuff again. Number 44, listen.
That effectively we're denying people vaccines. Do you have full confidence in what RFK Jr. is doing?
Well, I didn't get to watch the hearings today, but he's a very good person. And he means very well, and he's got some little different ideas. I guarantee a lot of the people at this table like RFK Jr., and I do. But he's got a different take, and we want to listen to all of those takes. But I heard he did very well today. But it's not your standard. It's not your standard talk, I would say, and that has to do with medical. And vaccines. But if you look at what's going on in the world with health, and look at this country also with regard to health, I like the fact that he's different.
And another voice who has been leading the charge and is different. And by the way, he comes from the world of vaccinations. He is a man who is quite literally hip deep in the study of and the implementation of vaccines. Dr. Robert Malone, who was a leading voice throughout all of the COVID madness, a sane voice, a light, a canary in the coal mine early before many other people began to jump on. Dr. Robert Malone was sounding the alarm on this now, and the CDC officially now saying what he's been saying for years. He is also part of the advisory committee on immunization practices named by HHS Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. He was chosen this year to do that. His book is War, Enforcing the New World Order, and Dr. Robert Malone joins us live on the phone this morning. Dr. Malone, glad you had some time for us. Hi.
Hi, Chris. Boy, the news cycle is just wicked on everything having to do with CDC. Thanks for having me on. And I just, an initial caveat, anything I say here is my opinion, doesn't represent the government, CDC, or ACIP.
Thank you for that. Let me start by saying, as we've said many times before, it is just stupid and dishonest to call you an anti-vax guy. Same for me. And I'll just say, as your host, I'm not an anti-vax host. So let's just start from that baseline, okay?
Yeah, we're pro-science, we're pro-data. And by the way, the Democrats that were harassing Bobby yesterday seem to have difficulty differentiating between modeling information and actual data. And the projections of 1 million lives saved is all based on modeling. And when you're talking about big numbers like that, little tiny changes in the assumptions of the model results in big differences in the outcome. And the modeling that has been done for COVID all the way through has been, frankly, debunked again and again and again.
Elizabeth Warren, and for time I'm not going to play it, but she was shrieking and shrieking about Kennedy taking away the COVID shot from people.
Yeah.
And Kennedy kept saying, I'm not taking the damn shot away from anybody that wants it. What is she talking about? Can people go get a COVID shot if they want it, Dr. Malone?
Yeah, what she's talking about is really she's mixing up a bunch of things. One of the things that happened was, as you recall, all of these were made available under emergency use authorization. But the medical emergency for COVID ended over a year ago, as I recall. And finally, they caught up with that and stopped the emergency use authorization. And the FDA provided specific data-based authorization for certain age groups. And according to the FDA's analysis, if you're over 65, you're at higher risk, and there's a number of risk factors that people have. But for the average person, they don't need these products, and these products do cause damage. Widely acknowledged is the myocarditis. That's now published in the package insert, something that the Democrats didn't want to acknowledge. So there's a number of adverse events or harms that can be associated with this. And with a vaccine, you're going into somebody who's otherwise healthy. You've got to make sure that it's super safe. And so the FDA, on balance, has decided that these products should be authorized for marketing to those that have a risk factor for severe COVID and those that are 65 and over. The others can obtain it through prescription. And that's the real, that's what she's whining about, is that if you're not in one of those high-risk groups, but you're, insistent on receiving this because you need it psychologically, then you can go to your doctor, convince your doctor to give you a prescription and go get the jab. And in terms of the whole insurance will cover it or won't cover it, that depends on your insurance policy, but we're talking about $35. Okay, so this is not...
Okay, and versus the government undoubtedly just paying full freight for Pfizer, Moderna, whomever, to just ship this thing out and inject it into everybody's arm, and we mass market it to the masses that everybody go get it and get it for free, which I'm sure is why government agents like Elizabeth Warren are so keen to keep this thing flowing,
it's not
right?
Free. There's nothing that's free, right?
Right.
When they say free, what it means is that everybody else gets to pay for your jab.
That's right. Let me just, in the interest of time, Dr. Malone, the children's shot, it always comes back to the stupid children's shot schedule, because that's where everybody's most emotional. Pretending children will die if we have a conversation about do we need to inject them with 300 shots before they're 18. Yeah. So where are we on that? Where do you stand on that? I'm not suggesting that every vaccine, polio, measles, I get it. I mean, we've heard all the arguments. I'm not suggesting there's no good vaccine, but where do we stand on vaccinating children, in your view?
So the question has to do with whether it's prudent and whether there are enough data. In other words, do the data support this tightly packed vaccination schedule? And whether or not, for things like administering hepatitis B vaccine at birth, make any sense. What's going to happen, and I don't want to anticipate what the ACIP is going to do. It's in under study right now. There's a working group that's focusing particularly on the childhood schedule, and they will examine that, and they will look for whether there's data on vaccine interactions, whether there are sufficient data to support the timing, whether the prior decisions of earlier ACIPs really make sense based on the data that we now have. And then they will make some recommendations, and those recommendations will either be accepted, rejected, or modified by the director of the CDC. That's how this works. The ACIP is supposed to be a completely independent advisory group to the director of the CDC, and the director can accept or reject or modify any of those recommendations. That's the way it is, and the rest of this is just hyperbole and kabuki theater. The thing that's going on here, let's focus on it. Who's the audiences that whole meeting were targeting? Number one, it's the Democrat base. They want to get them riled up, and they're succeeding with all of this fear. The next big audience is all voters for the midterms. Everything now is focused on the midterms. And what can we do to neutralize this growing grassroots movement called MAHA, which is bipartisan and has split off a bunch of votes off the Democrat Party? The other audience is President Trump, and you can see that from all the messaging around, we should give him the Nobel Prize for Operation Warp Speed, the strategy that was first rolled out by the Pfizer CEO and then is being aped by these Democrat senators. That's part of a longer-term campaign to try to drive a wedge between Kennedy and the president, and it's not working so far, but that is the angle that they're pushing.
Dr. Malone, you've been generous with your time. Do you have time? I'm asking you here live on the air, and so I'm sorry. Can I hold you for one more segment, or do you need to go?
No, yes, sir. I've got other stuff, but for you, yes, sir.
You're kind. Just because I have a couple more questions, I hate to rush it, and with just less than a minute to go, I didn't want to push it too close to the break. So we'll continue with Dr. Robert Malone here, who is, again, the original inventor of the mRNA delivery and vaccination technology that we use today. So not an anti-vax guy, all right? His book, Psy-War, Enforcing the New World Order, and you can follow him on X. I hope that you do. R.W. Malone, MD on X. He's also at Substack. R.W. Malone, MD on Substack. 855 Stigall's the telephone number. Open Line Friday rolls on. Speaking of Substack, my 3 times a week newsletter, the Harumph Society, comes out today. Just a few more questions with Dr. Malone. When we have him, his brain is invaluable, so I like to exploit it while we have it. More next. Dr. Malone, I was reading in The Hill a couple of weeks ago that Senator Richard Blumenthal is a big fan of yours, now demanding that you be fired. He wrote a letter to RFK Jr., calling on him to fire you. Said that you issued a meme-filled post on your newsletter, your personal blog at Substack, that included violent and threatening images that appeared to be directed at government officials. Of course, the meme was 5 out of 6 scientists have proven that Russian roulette is harmless. They're suggesting that you putting up a meme drives people to want to go, like that crazy that took shots at the CDC building. So would you care to respond, Doctor?
Yeah. So the real thing that aggravated the senator was another meme that was on there that addressed his criticism of Jeanine Pirro as a conspiracy theorist and unqualified, It seems to be his kind of go-to, is that people are unqualified and they're conspiracy theorists. And there was a little side box in that you have a character innocently asking the question, did she lie about her service in Vietnam? Which, of course, is one of his weak points because of his stolen valor. And that's what really lit him. And he tried to weaponize it as if somehow posting that thing about the revolver as a metaphor for random chance with severe outcomes, which is a problem in the analysis of a lot of things in epidemiology. It doesn't weigh severity; it weighs incidence. And so based on standard epidemiology, metaphorically, you would conclude that Russian roulette is safe. But these nuances, I think the best synopsis here is the one that Ron Johnson gave when I called him about Blumenthal's attacks, because, of course, Blumenthal is the what do they call it, ranking member on the Senate Subcommittee on Investigations. And Ron Johnson's quote was, well, you can't possibly be a Democrat after looking at that particular page of memes. You can't possibly be a Democrat because you have a sense of humor. And since Ron has been sending me his own memes.
Dr. Robert Malone, this is a shorter segment, but I wanted to close by asking you this. The state of public health today, are you as confident as RFK Jr. is that for the first time we're going to see real meaningful reforms and a real meaningful look under the hood? How do you assess things at present in this Trump administration led by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at HHS? How do you feel about it all?
They're moving extremely fast, and there is significant chaos and a whole lot of resistance. What the outcome is going to be and whether it's sustainable it's the history that's yet to be written, but there's no question that the secretary is making change and moving more quickly, efficiently, and in a focused way than any prior secretary of health that I've ever seen in my lifetime. So what's the outcome? Is it going to be sustainable? Is the bureaucracy and deep state going to win here? Stay tuned, and it's all going to come down to the midterms, my friends. And that is the only thing right now that matters. All of the rest of this is noise.
And they want to distract us talking about shots and vaccine schedules when, in fact, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s focus is whole health. Talking about what's in our food and the fact that he said 76% of us have a chronic illness. I mean, it's just stunning statistics, and for the left to jump up and down and talk about shots.
Increase in infant mortality.
Yeah, like the focus is not shots, Dr. Malone. We're dying. I mean, we're a sick nation.
Again, we just talked in the prior segment about the efforts to fracture the base and the Maha movement and Trump's voters is what it's about. And you can see that also with this recurrent theme in the questioning yesterday about rural hospitals, which is a total red herring because they've just dropped $50 billion into rural hospitals over the next 5 years, which has yet to hit. But the reason for that is they're trying to wedge off the rural farm, what used to be called flyover state population from Trump's base. That's what's going on there.
I am so grateful for your perspective and time, and I thank you for waiting and sticking around with us. Dr. Malone's book is Psywar, R.W. Malone, M.D. Thank you, my friend. More in a moment.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
We were talking with Dr. Malone about the state of the country's health and what is clearly a desire by the left, Big Pharma certainly, kind of the bureaucracy of Washington, D.C. They don't want to talk about your health. They just want to talk about the dollars flowing around to the various institutions that treat illness, manage the decline, rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said yesterday. But one of the things that's undeniably true, and they do not want to talk about, and my friend and former colleague Dr. Sebastian Gorka has now been sent out there by the White House as the anti-terrorism spokesperson for this trans movement that's going on. Modern medicine transing kids and making them lunatics. I mean, it's already a mental condition, 100% a mental condition. And I said yesterday, if you are a medical professional and you want to tell me that you can take a child and change their gender by chemically castrating them or physically, surgically altering them, I think you are straight out of a science fiction horror film. I don't want to talk to you. I'm certainly not going to listen to you and your opinion on their vaccine schedule if you think you can change gender. And then, as for the people that believe they're not the gender they were born, I think it's a mental condition. Now, God bless you if you're an adult and that's the way you want to live your life. Whatever. But I do think it's a mental condition. I pray for you. I hope you get to a Bible-based church, first of all, and then I hope you'll seek some help in a psychological way. But undeniably, you got a lot of these young people that are put on these drugs that are making them straight-up mass-shooting lunatics, as we saw with 2 young school children dead at a Catholic mass a couple of weeks ago. Josh Hammer, our friend and author of Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation and Destiny of the West. He has a brand new column at Newsweek, The Conversation America Needs to Have on Transgenderism. I couldn't agree more. It goes hand in glove with the distractions of the week and the Maha movement. And so, Josh, thanks for your time this morning. Hello.
Chris, good morning to you. It's always a pleasure to join.
I have 2 different stories in front of me, Josh, that are close cousins to what you've written here. Trump DOJ considers gun ban for transgender individuals. I find that very interesting, pushing the discussion. Should people that are transgender, is that a mental condition that should preclude them from their Second Amendment privileges, rights, I should say, not privileges, rights. And then here's this one from readline.com. GOP senators take on school transitioning kids behind parents' backs. This is a huge thing, too. Public schools secretly pushing this transgendering of children. So it's a lot, but it's something the left, again, doesn't want to talk about, much like Big Pharma and actually tackling illness instead of just treating illness. So the obfuscation is thick, Josh, is the point.
Yeah, look, Chris, you and I cannot be more on the same page here. I mean, I am just beside myself with frustration on this particular issue. I mean, for decades, essentially for the entire modern history of American psychiatry and American psychology, gender dysphoria was listed in the DSM, which once upon a time is what those who are seeking professional training in psychiatry and psychology would study. It was kind of their guide. It was very much kind of their blueprint for how to practice their profession. And gender dysphoria for decades and decades and decades was a universally recognized mental illness. And at some point along the left's long march, the entire rainbow jihadi agenda that kind of led to the Obergefell decision and the constitutionalization, unfortunately, I would argue, of same-sex nuptials in this country, somewhere along that time frame, when the left realized that it had declared cultural and legal victory on the same-sex marriage front, this new front emerged of transgenderism. And it happened seemingly overnight, where it was whitewashed out of the DSM. It was no longer considered gender dysphoria. How dare you even use that term, by the way, this term that once upon a time was universally accepted and disseminated in the psychological textbooks in grad schools. No, now it is transgenderism, and you must affirm that child's identity. But, the point of my short column, I think the point of the conversations that we're having now and elsewhere is it's probably time. It is probably past time, actually, to have a very serious conversation about whether or not this is actually a good idea to take a vulnerable young person who could be in elementary school, middle school, high school, whatever have you there, who is seeing what my friend Abigail Shrier has correctly identified as a social contagion. This social, it's becoming kind of the cool, hip thing to do to try to quote unquote transition yourself there. By the way, there's a whole kind of profit motive here when it comes to the pharma companies, yes, the hospitals. A lot of these clinics profit immensely off of these chemical castration procedures there. So it's just a total mess. But it's even worse than a mess because we've now seen multiple high-profile mass shootings, the Covenant School in Nashville in 2023, and now the Annunciation Church in Minneapolis just last week. And it's really not difficult to figure out what the motive is here, Chris. These are anti-biblical, anti-Christian, violent, murderous rampages from individuals who saw in Christianity, who saw in biblical religion more generally, a worldview that does not, quote unquote, affirm their decision, because Christianity, Judaism, the Bible more generally holds Genesis 1:27, that God made man in his image, male and female, he created them there. This notion of quote unquote transgenderism is irreconcilable with a biblical worldview. And I think that really, above all, is why these young folks who have gone down this rabbit hole, that's really why I think they're taking out this particular form of rage.
I'm kind of having this, maybe it's not particularly profound, but I'm having this epiphany over the weeks, just recent weeks. We've talked about people like Sydney Sweeney, who the left hates and is angry about a company promoting their product with a naturally beautiful woman who's healthy. It's so obvious to me that leftists in this country do not, they like us, I don't know how else to say, they like people ill, not just dependent, but ill, mentally ill, physically ill. I was thinking about this video I saw yesterday of our colleague Charlie Kirk having a debate with a morbidly obese college student, male, dressed as a woman, wearing a pink bow and a pink dress. And I just thought, good Lord, that is the personification of the problem with the American left today. A morbidly obese man dressed as a woman arguing about what is a woman or a man with Charlie. And I just, this is what, the left not only celebrates it, they don't want us to talk about the fact the guy is morbidly obese and thinks he's a different gender. I mean, it's mental and physical illness. This is the whole thing the Maha movement's about, Josh, and all they want to keep talking about is pharmaceutical products and shots. Isn't it interesting? They don't want to have the conversation about what's really happening.
Yeah, so I think part of it is that is exactly that. Part of it is just a conversation about physical and mental health. But I think there's actually something even broader going on here, right? Which is that society, and especially folks on the left, have actually lost the ability to simply state what is true and what is untrue, what is fact and what is fiction. There are large swaths of society that I think renounce and reject the entire notion that there actually is such thing as objective truth. The entire notion of objectivity has kind of been cast away as one of the many things lost during our culture war. I mean, Sydney Sweeney, the American Eagle, is actually a great example. I think once upon a time, society would have looked at this young woman and said, okay, she is objectively good looking. This is objectively probably a smart advertisement there. So be it, good for them, whatever the contract was, private contract between parties, go sell some jeans. That's your right to do so when you look like that and when you can film commercials like that there. But, now we have, just speaking of that, you mentioned this morbidly obese person that Charlie was grilling there. I mean, how about the whole kind of body positivity movement, more generally speaking, when it comes to kind of fashion clothing there, trying to put people, who are, 300-400 pounds there to try and, be modeling, women's lingerie and stuff there. I mean, I'm sorry, but we should be able to say that, no, we actually do not want to glorify this. To be clear, I'm not casting aspersions on someone who does not look a certain way, but I am merely saying that you should actually take your health into your own hands. It should not be desirable to weigh that much. You should actually try to go to the gym, try to fix your diet, try to listen maybe to what RFK and the Maha folks are saying there. Take your life into your own hands there. There are certain things that we should be able to say are objective and they are good, and there are certain things that are objective and they are less good. And that's not to cast aspersions, but is to certainly cast a goal and say that we should all strive for that which is good, that which is true, that which is beautiful.
Josh Hammer's brilliant new book, Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation and Destiny of the West. It's a bestseller. Came out a little earlier this year. Grab it if you haven't picked it up yet. Let me pivot quickly to lean on your legal beagle knowledge, Josh, if I may. The president is asking the Supreme Court to weigh in quickly on tariffs. And I'm just curious if you think, I know that's a hard shift from where we were, but do you think the Supreme Court ultimately stands with President Trump's move to raise tariffs on certain nations under emergency justification?
I don't know, actually. I'm not going to confidently predict that they will, because I think it's actually a pretty close legal question, to be totally honest with you. The way that the Federal Circuit wrote their opinion, they wrote it on pretty formalist constitutional grounds, trying to make a distinction between Article 1, Section 9 and Article 1, Section 10 for purposes of Congress raising revenue there. It was written in a very kind of formalistic way, I think intended to appeal to many of the court's originalist justices. So I actually can easily foresee a world in which some of the more moderate originalists, let's call them the Brett Kavanaughs, Amy Coney Barrett's, folks like that, they could easily look at his opinion and say, you know what, that actually makes a whole lot of sense. Look, I'm sympathetic, certainly, to what President Trump is trying to do there. The easiest way to get this done, because this whole debate is essentially a debate about delegated power from the Congress to the presidency. So if we're kind of just going back to like Schoolhouse Rock, Constitutional Law 101, the easiest way to actually get President Trump's tariff agenda passed would obviously be for Congress to simply pass a new law. This whole debate is just about the extent of that which the president can do unilaterally there. I'm a little more sympathetic to the president's argument. I think that he definitely will get some votes there, but it's going to be a very close, interesting call, Chris. It's kind of a tough one to predict one way or the other.
Yeah, I agree. And, of course, Congress in the 70s passed sort of an emergency piece of legislation that allows for the president to use emergency justification for tariffs. So we'll see if that's how the court interprets it. And I've got very limited time here, Josh, with a minute, but can I squeeze in the question about how you think SCOTUS is going to have to weigh in on this National Guard business, too? Obviously, both in D.C., but L.A., because a lower court has already said, posse comitatus, Trump can't send the National Guard to L.A. Trump is probably going to take this to the Supreme Court, too. How do you think they come down on that?
So Posse Comitatus Act was passed during the Reconstruction period, late 19th century, but they're kind of missing the forest for the trees here because there's a much older statute called the Insurrection Act of 1807 passed during the Thomas Jefferson presidency. Chris, more generally speaking here, just real brief, this notion that the federal government can't send in federal law enforcement when there is domestic unrest at a state or local level. I would encourage the folks who are making this point to go read about the Whiskey Rebellion. When George Washington called up 12 to 13,000 people to the federal militia to send them out to Western Pennsylvania to quash a mini anarchic rebellion out near Pittsburgh in 1794. There's a very long history of this, so I kind of wish the folks who are freaking out would kind of just open a history book once in a while,
The brilliant Josh Hammer. We can talk about any number of things, go any direction. That's why I love. He can hang with it all. Get Israel and civilization, and have a great weekend, Josh. More in a minute. Email yesterday from a couple in Washington State, deeply concerned about this new consortium of California, Washington, Oregon that are forming in response to RFK Jr. and the CDC changes and whatnot. I heard Massachusetts is doing something similar. And it was a great post from a regular listener in the Philadelphia area. He said, RFK and Trump accomplished something huge. They actually tricked blue states into injecting federalism into the public health debate. Governors and legislatures are taking power and responsibility away from the feds. It's like grounding a kid who has a PlayStation and a flat screen in his room. I absolutely loved that. It's such a brilliant point. It's like, Florida. Florida has done away with the childhood vaccine schedule, or they're about to anyway, phasing out the mandates. It's a revival of American exceptionalism and federalism. Trump advocated this during the pandemic, too, by the way. The importance of personal choice over state imposition. These people from Washington that emailed me about it said they're beating it out of Washington State if that happens, by the way. Forced shots to stay in Washington. And that's great. Red states and blue states, more dichotomy, more federalism. Under the guidance of Joseph Ladapo, the Surgeon General in Florida, he's challenging establishment norms. Florida is reclaiming core American values, individual freedom, personal accountability, and the essential trust between doctors and families. No more uniform vaccine rules imposed from a distance from some dictator in Washington, D.C., talking about what has to enter our children's bodies. Instead, Florida is now shifting power back to parents and physicians where it rightly belongs. Mandates reduced vaccination to a mechanical requirement prescribed by officials, totally detached in most cases from families' specific health backgrounds, their beliefs, their concerns, and mandates just simply weaken the foundation of medicine generally. Medicine is supposed to be built upon informed discussions that foster mutual respect. Now, without mandates, doctors can truly guide families through education and advice and partnership. This encourages honest conversation, outlining clear benefits of shots or any pharmaceutical product, by the way, also addressing risks and side effects and the inherent uncertainties present in any treatment. No medicine is without cost. Genuine consent requires transparency concerning issues like allergies or rare side effects or prolonged uncertainties. Mandates shortcut that process. It's a forced agreement without true understanding. What does that breed? Where we are now, distrust, people uninformed and in the dark. What's happening in Florida goes beyond vaccines. It affirms medical freedom in all aspects of healthcare. This is so important. Imagine doctors exploring treatment options freely, weighing pros and cons for every kid and all of us without state interference. In a landscape overwhelmed by online confusion and media bias, parents can now rely on trusted advisors rather than some far-off enforcer. When physicians discuss the importance of preventing measles outbreaks while also honestly addressing risks like seizures or immune effects, decisions are made based on understanding rather than just pressure. This is keeping in alignment with Trump-era reforms. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is dismantling this cozy relationship between big pharma and government and the medical community. These are connections that have often prioritized profit over people. For far too long, drug companies have paid doctors to promote shots, turning caregivers into sales agents. And it compromises that relationship I was just talking about, the purity of care for people. Kennedy's initiatives work to sever these ties. It revitalizes the doctor-patient relationship. Free from these influences, physicians can provide straightforward, personalized counsel, rebuilding trust, allowing families to make decisions without ulterior motives. This path aims to restore American healthcare by exposing corruption and reclaiming autonomy. Informed and voluntary decisions foster genuine commitment, rooted in knowledge rather than coercion. This is the MAGA approach of prioritizing families in America. Of course, critics from the public health elite who cling to control warn of potential disease surges. History disproves that argument, by the way. Florida's strategy is reframing the conversation by empowering doctors and parents. This really is a celebration of federalism, so let the blue states keep their mandates. Let Florida go their way. We'll see. May the best state win.
Well, I don't know about you, but losing weight is one of those things I have been battling my entire life. Hi, it's Chris Stigall, and trying to keep it off once I've lost it, instead of gaining it back, that's also been a very difficult thing. I decided I was going to try something new. I decided I was going to try my PhD weight loss. And I decided I was going to try it because I know personally colleagues and many listeners to the Salem Radio Network that have lost thousands of pounds of weight combined thanks to the My PhD Weight Loss program. So I'm going to call up Dr. Ashley Lucas and the team at My PhD Weight Loss. I'm going to get one of these personal nutrition coaches. I hope you'll join me in this weight loss journey. I hope very soon you and I will be able to brag about all the weight and inches we're losing off our waist. I'd just like to get a little weight off these knees, you know. I'm not getting any younger. It's going to be a lot easier to walk around a golf course this summer. Join me. MyPhDWeightLoss.com is the website, or 864-644-1900. 864-664-1900 or myphdweightloss.com. Tell them Chris Stigall sent you, and good luck. Here we go.
A major retail chain just canceled a massive order, leaving MyPillow with an overstock of the classic MyPillows, and now it's your gain. For a limited time, MyPillow is offering their entire classic collection at true wholesale prices. Get a standard MyPillow for just $17.98, and if you want more, you can upgrade to a queen size for only $22.98. or a king size for $24.98. Snag body pillows for $29.98 and versatile multi-use pillows for just $9.98. Give your bed a whole new pillow set while supplies last. Visit MyPillow.com today. Use the promo code Chris or call 800-932-5056 to score these amazing deals while they're in stock. Plus, when you order $75 or more in merchandise, you'll receive $100 in free digital gifts. No strings attached. That's right, premium pillows at unbeatable prices and bonus gifts to top it off. Don't wait. Head to MyPillow.com today or call 800-932-5056 right now. And don't forget to use the promo code Chris to grab your standard MyPillow for only $17.98 while supplies last. Glad to be with you, folks. Welcome into the weekend. Our telephone number, 855-STIGALL. It is Open Line Friday. It's been a busy week here. A short week, but busy. A lot going on. And I think, if you haven't gathered by now and you're a regular listener to this show, I think what we're discussing this week may have the most profound impact on the future of this country, the long-term impact of this country. I mean, look, financial is certainly one. But, I mean, with a population decline, with us having fewer kids and us being sicker, that's ball game. I mean, when you're talking about jobs, when you're talking about long-term Social Security payouts, when you're talking about a country that can sustain itself, our health, our mental health. Kids dying at the hands of lunatics dressed up like women, opening fire on them. And that we have a medical establishment promoting it. And that we have a medical and pharmaceutical establishment that is vicious toward a Secretary of Health who says, can we just objectively question this stuff? We are 76%. Again, this is just a mind-boggling. I couldn't stop watching and listening and sharing this with people yesterday, and you agreed because I put it up on my social media, and it's easily one of the most viral shared bits of media that I have shared in some while. It's this testimony from RFK Jr. yesterday in this hearing, number 28. Again, Paul, if you would, please.
This morning, I got the latest numbers from CDC that 76.4% of Americans now have a chronic disease. This is stunning. When my uncle was president, it was 11%. 1950, it was 3%. Today, it's 76.4%. 8 out of 10 of our kids cannot qualify for military service. This is a national security issue. When my uncle was president...
Yeah, it is a national security issue, and he went on to say the amount of money, $1 trillion we're spending on disease now, and we spent nothing when he said his uncle was president. 76.4% of Americans have a chronic disease. And they shout, vaccines! As if that's the seminal issue of our day. Vaccines? Come on. Dr. Michael Schwartz knows better. He has been another great voice that we have leaned on routinely throughout the COVID era, a guy that likes to challenge the conventional wisdom, certainly when it comes to government medicine. He is not uniformly, steadfastly behind every recommendation to come out of Washington, D.C. Doesn't mean he's anti-shot. We always have to say this now, Dr. Schwartz. You're not a lunatic who says don't medicate the kids or whatever, right? Good morning. Welcome in.
Nice to see you, my friend. How you doing?
I'm fine. I hate that I even have to do it. But inevitably, we always get the idiots who say, oh, what kind of kook did you host this morning? Who's this Dr. Schwartz? He doesn't think we should vaccinate our kids? I always like to start by saying that's not your position, I assume, yes?
I'll tell you. I mean, I'm a research doctor, but I own medical clinics. And we were the first company in New Jersey to do a COVID test, as you know. We had 19,000 patients, did 44,000 tests, and we learned a lot. We learned so much in the first 4 weeks that if the government talked to us, if we weren't shadow banned and censored, we could have stopped all this nonsense right away. We learned that COVID had a mortality rate that of the flu. We learned, people don't realize that the shots didn't come out for a full year. We had a full year of testing and treating patients before the shots were available. And if a patient of mine, 19,000 of them, which we didn't lose one, we only had 4 go to the hospital. If one of them came to us and said, do I need this shot? The answer was always a laughable no. You don't need this. A shot that doesn't work, a shot that wasn't designed like a traditional vaccine. I got real tired. I'm watching this testimony yesterday, and you have senators talking about vaccines. They can't explain the difference between an mRNA vaccine, a subunit vaccine, a viral vector vaccine, or a live attenuated vaccine like the polio shot. You're comparing apples to grenades. The similarity ends in the fact that they're round. That's just about it.
That's so brilliant and so important. You are not suggesting what you were just critical of, the COVID shot, is the same as a polio vaccine. They are. That is ridiculous. And the left and the media keep trying to conflate it all as one big. If the universe of medicine, if government medicine says it's a shot and you should take it, that applies to everything, all shots for all things. It's absurd. It's insulting. It's dangerous. Quite frankly, you're not anti-shot across the board. You're against this particular COVID shot, true?
I mean, of course, the mRNA technology works so differently. And what it was designed for, it wasn't designed to go after the whole of the COVID virus. So there are 27 proteins inside the capsid of COVID. I can get all sciencey. What you get when you get natural immunity is B and T lymphocytes. That's your memory cells. The shot doesn't do that. It gives you about 120-day antibody response, which is the same as a flu shot. And after that, you're as susceptible as anybody else. We knew right from the start that by the way these were designed, Chris, that you could get it. you could give it. And what the White House was saying and the CDC was saying was a blatant lie. I mean, we're sitting here rolling our eyes going, why are they doing this? Do they just not know? Or is this nefarious? Now, the latter seemed to be more plausible later. But I mean, I just wish that these folks would have talked to us. It is insulting to have a senator ask Robert Kennedy, how many people died during COVID? My favorite one, Chris, was the mosquito who landed to get a drink, got his foot stuck in honey, tried to back out of the honey. He backed over a matchstick, hit his head on a rock, died of COVID. Figure out how many people died in that period and how many were tagged with, did they have COVID or not at that point? It's a ridiculous question.
And Dr. Michael Schwartz, by the way, the book is called The Only Way to Save America, Trump 2.0 and the Battle for Common Sense. They are making this guy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and everyone around him, people like you, people like Robert Malone, they're making you out to be loony. My wife's going to see a holistic doctor right now to talk about some various health things, and she had her regular doctor, if you want, whatever you want to call it, the general practice doctor. When she said she's going to see this holistic doctor, said, "I'm gonna be careful. Be careful with that." I just see. Here's what I see. I'm not a doctor, and I can't prescribe or suggest anything to anyone, nor would I try. But I'm hearing establishment medicine push mightily against people who say, is there a better way, or does that work, or should we take a second look? Establishment medicine seems to be saying, shut up, do it our way, and anything else is crazy. And I really resent that, Doctor.
I do too. And you know, it comes down to training, Chris. If everybody understood how these folks get trained, my wife's a nurse practitioner. You know, she goes to school for all these years. She understands everything. Then she gets out of school, does her clinicals, and she's getting trained by people who were trained 30 years ago. They don't pay attention to some of the newer technology, PCR technology, for instance. We've been using PCR for years. We use it for wound testing. We use genetic testing. There's a test that's out that's called a pharmacogenetic test. Been out for 25 years. I do a cheek swab on you, and I can tell what meds you can and can't take for the rest of your life based on how your liver metabolizes it. These doctors don't understand some of the newer technology. They don't understand the studies. That's for sure. We've never done a placebo study against one of these shots or vaccines to figure out if they work. I can prove that the flu shot doesn't work in about 30 seconds because we've never done a study on it. No one's ever tested the whole of the population at flu season to see if anybody's had it. We did that with COVID, and we figured out a lot of things. The sickest of the sick had a co-infection, which no one ever tested for. I had Dr. Peter McCullough on my show the other day, and it was great because he understood what I was saying. He goes, you're right. You know, most of these folks who died had a co-infection, a bacterial infection that was never tested for and never treated. We've never really had the conversation, Chris, with these other doctors, the ones who shut their doors during COVID. We haven't learned anything, and I appreciate you plugging the new book. The old books of Fauci's Fiction and Vaccine Fiction discuss this in detail, and we knew this stuff 4 months in. We knew what the shots were doing just a year in. We are 5 years into this, and you have senators asking ridiculous questions that they could understand very completely if they just understood our data and they talked to the actual practitioners and folks who did this for all those years. What we did during COVID was ridiculous, and we can get into the story of the lockdowns and all that stuff. But the questions I heard yesterday wasn't moving the country forward in their mantra of progressiveness. It was stalemating. It was dumbing down America. Robert Kennedy is the best person for this job at this moment, and those folks should pay attention.
When you say 76% of the country has a comorbidity, I like. How do you scream vaccines? Like that's just like a non sequitur. What does that even have to do with anything? The country's sick and getting sicker, and they're shouting about Pfizer and Moderna, Dr. Schwartz. It just drives me crazy.
It shows you what a grip that big pharma has on our country, right? I mean, Kennedy brought it up yesterday about Elizabeth Warren bringing in $855,000 from a pharma company. When you think about that, I mean, you know, you wonder about the conflict of interest in these folks that are asking the questions and where their loyalties really lie. We have a chronic illness problem, and he's right. I mean, look at all the kids. We're talking about autism. We're trying to get. You think somebody, and I think we had this conversation the last time I was on your show. We were talking about autism and trying to find the common link. And there are parents out there who said, well, I just don't want to know because I don't want to feel responsible for something I might have, contributed to. I don't think that's the right play here. We're moving. You have to think about the rest of humanity moving forward. If we can figure out some of these causes and these links, we've got to tackle these problems. It's not, look, the worst answer a CEO could ever get from a company, I've talked to my friend David Richter about this, is someone will come and tell you, and the CEO will ask, why are we doing something a certain way? And they'll tell the CEO, well, because that's the way we've always done it. Wrong answer. We need to figure out new ways to fix these problems, and that's what RFK is doing.
Dr. Michael Schwartz, the show is fantastic. The books that he mentioned are must-reads, and the brand new one, The Only Way to Save America, Trump 2.0 and the Battle for Common Sense. Thank you for your perspective, Doctor. We'll talk to you again soon. More in a minute. Let's get back to it. In Lakewood, Colorado, Joan, I'm sorry about Space Force leaving Colorado and going to Alabama. Good morning. I don't know how you guys took that, you Coloradans. Good morning.
A lot of us were like, yeah. It's so bad here. I was calling you because I am a retired healthcare professional, and I just wanted to say, with your wife going out and finding that I actually have my primary physician is a DO, and they are more into nutrition and that kind of thing, and my insurance covers the DOs. So I can honestly say that we have the most progressive, somewhat communist-leaning city council here in Lakewood. And we have a problem with a homeless man who has been by a grocery store, and he's been spitting and hitting cars, and he's trying to intimidate people to donate to him. And I have talked to the police, and the police say, oh, we have this community action team. It's the social workers, okay? Mm-hmm. And they're sending out the social worker to handle this. And they don't understand how this is a safety issue. Spitting is not good. They used to have laws in the 1900s about spitting. You used to have a real problem if you spat, and that's why they had all the spittoons.
Well, I mean, heck, last night, look at the NFL. Look how the NFL treats spitting out there, Joan.
Well, they should. But here in Lakewood, they don't, this man is out here spitting on us, and they're like, well, we're going to try and find a long-term solution, and we've been reaching out to him. And I had a policeman officer call me yesterday, and I said, just say there isn't anything you can do. Just say there isn't anything you can do. And he was like,
Yeah. He can't say it, but that's what he wants to say, Joan. I'm glad you called in Lakewood. I'm sorry you guys are going through that. Probably another reason that, Colorado is becoming infested with that kind of attitude, just letting rampant crime happen. And President Trump taking Space Force away from Colorado. He's like, I'm not going to reward that kind of stuff. Let's go to Dave in Pennsylvania, who's been waiting patiently. Dave, thanks a lot for holding. Welcome to Open Line Friday. Hi.
Hi, Chris. I'm an attorney. I'd like to talk a little bit about burning a flag being protected speech. The First Amendment protects the content of speech, not your conduct while you speak. Under the First Amendment, you must be in a place you are lawfully allowed to be, and your conduct must be otherwise lawful. Let's say I want to burn a truck tire in the middle of the sidewalk. That's illegal. I could get disorderly conduct arrest. It's damage to public property, the sidewalk. And fire is a dangerous activity government has a right to regulate. Now, what if I take that truck tire and I paint a United States flag on the side? Does that turn an illegal activity into a legal one? I say it doesn't, because the First Amendment protects what you say, what you write, does not protect what you do.
I tell you what, that is a really great point. That's why this is the smartest audience out there, and I appreciate the point, Dave. I can't argue that. Now, as I've pointed out, and I've told the famous story of Justice Scalia, the late great Scalia, who actually said that it is protected speech. He ultimately ruled. His wife completely disagreed with him on that, by the way. But you're right. If you lit anything else on fire out in the open, it would be at least something a community would ticket you over. But somehow if it's a flag, it's considered speech. I'll have to noodle that over. Never know what's coming on Open Line Friday, Dave. Thanks for making it spicy. Quick break. 855 Stigall's our telephone number. Welcome to the weekend. Glad you're with us on the Stigall Show. as I just look at the totality of President Trump and what he's done in the Maha movement and so much else, I just consistently come back to the fact that this is, for people that are not, happy with him maybe all the time in terms of what he says about the pro-life issue. He's still consistently the most pro-life president we've ever had. And I don't know how you could say otherwise. I mean, Donald Trump has consistently demonstrated through his actions, and not just words, but I mean actions, that he has a deep personal commitment to protecting innocent lives from unnecessary danger. It's just ingrained in his identity. Maybe it's shaped by his upbringing, a demanding father, we hear in his dad, or he has an instinctive moral compass that rejects unnecessary suffering. But he has a drive in his business dealings and philanthropy, presidential actions. It transcends mere policy. You can see it in what the First Lady's doing, talking about AI and her concern for the kids sitting right next to President Trump and all these tech billionaires last night. It reveals the essence of who the guy is. He's got an agenda that actively seeks to confront and reduce threats to human beings, whether from criminal organizations, uncontrolled borders, hidden medical dangers. I mean, think about the recent order for the military, the swift elimination of a Venezuelan speedboat operated by Tren de Aragua and that gang in the Caribbean. This operation resulted in the deaths of 11 members of this thug gang and destroyed a shipment of fentanyl and other dangerous drugs headed for our shores and our streets. This isn't just bravado. This reflects what I'm talking about, Trump's profound aversion to the slow poison in this country of stuff like addiction, fentanyl. It has claimed so many innocent lives every year, as you well know. It also connects directly to his ongoing effort to strengthen the southern border against illegal crossings, which not only strain resources, but also enable human traffickers and violent criminals to exploit vulnerable communities. He's rescuing kids all over the country that have previously been thought lost forever. And then there's the topic that we've spent a lot of time talking about this morning and all week long, the shots, the vaccines. Trump's record illustrates a balanced yet inquisitive intellect. Yes, he was the author of Operation Warp Speed. He harnessed American innovation to expedite development and distribution of a shot that I don't think there's much doubt at the time saved lives during a global crisis. Most of the docs in the entry-level days of that won't disagree. However, as a true skeptic, he still questions authority, and he appoints Kennedy to lead investigations through HHS regarding potential risks now associated with things like that very shot. For kids and adults, he wants transparency. Complacency used to be there. Now he wants transparency. This hearing, where Kennedy was grilled yesterday, he stood firm. He challenged the establishment about shots, COVID specifically, and others, and advocated for reforms, which the CDC needs desperately. This is Trump's insistence. No life should be lost due to corporate negligence or institutional inaction. His approach is not a dismissal of science. It's a call for accountability, protective instincts toward an unsuspecting public he's been tasked with leading. And then you look at the global stage. President Trump and his diplomatic pragmatism has resulted in measurable reductions in violence. He's helped facilitate significant peace agreements between Azerbaijan and Armenia, for instance, last month. Years of hostilities that claimed who knows how many lives. He says this all the time, I want to stop the dying. In the context of Ukraine, he's advocating for faster resolutions through direct engagement with these world leaders. Domestically, he's trying anyway, even though Democrats are fighting him, he's trying to send the National Guard to places like D.C. and L.A. to help mitigate urban decay and violence, afflicting the capital, afflicting L.A., Chicago. And by the way, initial data indicates there has been a sharp decline in major crimes, all because President Trump got frustrated with preventable loss and did something about it. In essence, Donald Trump is not just about abstract ideology. he is rooted in values that are the very sanctity of life. He places that above all else. He is a pro-life president. And in my view, that's what drives him to dismantle obstacles to safety and justice. It's the underlying force behind the MAGA movement. MAGA is not just a catchy slogan. This is a movement grounded in one man's determined heart, urging a nation to acknowledge we are sitting ducks. We have a lot of vulnerabilities. And he wants to fix those. He wants us to emerge stronger, and he has surrounded himself with people that he believes can do that and will challenge the status quo. And I, for one, am grateful. I am grateful for guys like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. standing in the breach under withering attack from people that are tied to institutions and businesses that do not have your best interests at heart. Guys like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I believe, do. Give me number 29, Paul.
Do you believe COVID-19 was politicized?
Yeah, the whole process was politicized. Senator, I mean, we were lied to about everything. We were lied to about natural immunity. We were lied to about, we were told again and again the vaccines would prevent transmission, they'd prevent infection. It wasn't true. They knew it from the start it wasn't true because that's what the animal studies and the clinical trials showed. We were told that there was science behind cloth masks. The CDC allowed the teachers union to write the order closing our schools, which hurt working people all over the country, and then pretend it was science-based. All of these issues, and then I can show you, like, for example, Chairman Wyden was talking about me politicizing ACIP. During COVID, probably the most famous scientist on ACIP was Martin Kulldorff from Harvard, the great, world-renowned epidemiologist and vaccinologist. And he criticized the COVID booster mandates. They ejected him from COVID because he wasn't in the orthodoxy. The two biggest health officials at FDA during COVID, Dr. Gruber and Dr. Krause, criticized the Biden mandates, vaccine mandates. President Biden said in August, I would never take that vaccine, the Trump vaccine. And he came in, he mandated it, and then he fired the two top health officials at FDA who said, hey, this thing has not been properly tested. So the whole process was politicized, and even today.
That is so important. And when he brought that up yesterday, I was like, yes, I wished I'd remembered to mention the fact that here Kennedy is taking all this incoming for firing people at the CDC for not saving lives. The Biden administration fired people for questioning the shot mandate. Joe Biden tried to cost every last working American their job if they would not take a shot that was completely unproven at best at that time. And yet, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. now coming in with the data and plenty to back him up, says that never should have been. It was lies, and it was forced on the American people for whatever motives you want to assign them, and I'm going to clean house, and we're going to start anew. We're going to start afresh. And they're attacking Kennedy? It's bass-ackwards. And we all know why. Because Big Pharma money reigns supreme. There is no lobbying effort in Washington, D.C. like Big Pharma. It's not even close. Dr. Roger Marshall, who is a senator from Kansas. Take a listen to him yesterday, number 33.
Behind me, I know it's going to be hard to see from there. I can barely read it. This is the current CDC recommendations for vaccines for children. On day number 1, they get their first jab, a hepatitis vaccine. By the time they're 18 months, they've had 18 jabs. By the time they get to be able to vote, they have 76 jabs.
And we don't question it because government doctors say so. Now, maybe there's perfectly good reason to do it. Maybe not. But as I articulated earlier in the show, and guys like Dr. Ladapo in Florida are stating, that should be a discussion between you and your doctor. And your doctor needs to make the convincing case to you as the parent. Here's why. And here's the science behind it. Do we have to do it all at once? Do you need 75 shots between birth and 18? Little hard to swallow, isn't it? Dare we question? How dare we question? Why not? What's wrong with you? Who the hell is some distant bureaucrat to tell you to inject your kid with 75 different shots and you're not to ask? That doesn't even make sense. You're not even being a responsible adult at that point. I mean, have a spine, have a brain, have a little integrity and self-respect. Parent, for God's sakes. Wake up and actually advocate for your kids and loved ones. Well, the government says so I guess we better do it. I got about a minute, Julianne, in Pennsylvania. Thanks for waiting. Sorry to crush it in here, but I wanted to squeeze you in on an open line Friday. Hi.
Hi, Chris. I'm a first-time caller, and I had to at least come in and say I am so behind Robert Kennedy because I went through hell last year because I was on 2 different medications that were interacting with each other, and I was in and out of hospitals and rehab facilities all year. And thank God I finally had a visiting nurse come in after one of these trips, and she was looking over my medicines, and she contacted my doctors, and she said she has, she shouldn't be on this, and she needs to stop that, and you need to change this. And my life has so turned around since then because I kept falling, and I didn't know why I was falling, and it was the fact I was over-medicated. And this is
and you pressed and advocated for yourself, and you finally found someone who was willing to hear your questions and take a different look at it, is your point, Julianne.
Visiting nurse. And these doctors, they just prescribe this stuff for you, and it just irritates me to no end. They don't look to see what reaction.
I hear you, Julianne. I hear you. God bless you. I'm so glad you're well. Congratulations on advocating for yourself. More in a minute. Holly, give me number 39 here. Just so you know, in case you feel like maybe you stand alone, or again, media and oftentimes on social media, you start to feel like, I don't know, I really like what RFK Jr. is doing, but everyone's making him out to be some kind of nut. Well, the vaudevillian over at CNN is back. Harry Enton, in number 39 here, Paul, telling his viewers there at CNN, despite their coverage and despite them trying to make him out to be a villain, it doesn't seem to be working.
RFK Jr. ain't exactly popular, but he's the most popular of all the key officials that we have recent polling on. Pete Hegseth, his net favorable, minus 14 points. J.D. Vance, minus 11. Marco Rubio, minus 10. RFK Jr. is at minus 7, but minus 7 beats minus 10, beats minus 11, beats minus 14. So, no, RFK Jr. is not a drag on President Trump. He's not the most embattled. In fact, he is the most popular official in Trump's cabinet, at least according to the polling.
Yeah, and I don't know the metrics on that poll, but you've got to figure Democrats are heavily sampled in that thing, as typically they are. And RFK Jr. is probably one of the key reasons you had such crossover appeal from Donald Trump in this last election cycle. He brought with him a whole lot of folks who they may be single-issue voters, and on the issue of getting the country healthy and getting rid of mandates in health, questioning medicine, questioning the way we administer medicine in this country, that moves a whole lot of people. Women in particular. Women love this guy. Universally, mothers are 100% on the Maha train. So just thought I'd let you know that in terms, I'm not saying that he's universally beloved, but to Harry Enton's point, if President Trump has a problem with anyone in his cabinet, it ain't RFK Jr., despite the way he's being treated in the media here lately. Quickly, at the White House, he held a big CEO dinner last night with tech big shots like Zuckerberg, Tim Cook, Tim Apple, as they call him famously. Number 43, here's Tim Cook from Apple.
I want to thank you for including me this evening. It's incredible to be among everyone here, particularly you and the First Lady. I've always enjoyed having dinner and interacting. I want to thank you for setting the tone such that we could make a major investment in the United States and have some key manufacturing, advanced manufacturing here. I think that says a lot about your focus and your leadership and your focus on innovation. I also want to thank you for helping American companies around the world. This is a very key thing, and I really enjoy working with your administration on those topics as well.
Yeah. Mark Zuckerberg, Meta's CEO in number 45, also had good things to say for Donald Trump.
All of the companies here are making huge investments in the country in order to build out data centers and infrastructure to power the next wave of innovation. So it's, we don't often get together as the CEOs of the different companies, but it's good to see everyone.
How much are you spending, would you say, over the next few years?
Oh, gosh. I think it's probably going to be something like, at least $600 billion through 28 in the U.S. Yeah.
It's a lot.
No, it's significant.
That's a lot.
Can you imagine living in a world where you just kind of casually say, I don't know, 600 bill, give or take? Mark Zuckerberg talks about 600 billion like I do a 20. Sam Altman, OpenAI CEO, and number 46.
Sam, you're a big leader of a very new industry at a very young age. You're a young guy. Do you want to tell us about what you're doing? You told me things before that are absolutely unbelievable. So what are you doing?
First of all, to echo the comments of Tim and others, thank you so much for getting us all together, and thank you for being such a pro-business, pro-innovation president. It's a very refreshing change. We're very excited to see what you're doing to make all of our companies and our entire country so successful. The investment that's happening here.
So I wanted you to hear that. That happened last night at the White House. Some of the most prominent figures in big tech gathered together yesterday and heaping praise on this administration. Let's go to Robert in Bradenton, Florida on Open Line Friday. Hey, Robert, good morning.
Good morning to you. Hey, I watched RFK yesterday, and there's very few things in history, politically speaking, that just made me sit up in my chair. That guy, when he explained to us, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, when he told us 76% of people today in America have chronic disease in comparison to when JFK was president, it was like 13. In 1950, it was like 7 or 8%. And then he said, basically what we've been doing for decades is shuffling chairs around on the Titanic. It brought me all the way back to Trump going down the escalator and how America felt. We forget so much in so little time as Americans, but if we can remember back when we considered Donald Trump for president, we have had it with the Democrat Party and government as usual when Sweet Willie took our guns back in 94, and it just kept rolling and ended up with this Obama tragedy. We remember it was an Obama tragedy. The media wants us to remember something different, but to see what
Beautifully said. Beautifully said, Robert. Yeah, it's a reminder of standing in the breach and standing up and having a spine. Well said, and thank you. I hope you have a great weekend. I'm glad you spent some time with us. We'll see you next week right here. So that's a wrap for another Chris Stigall Show podcast. Thanks for committing to it, listening to it all the way through. You're a fighter. I like that about you. Hope you'll leave it a 5-star review and a written review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'll see you next time here on the Chris Stigall Show podcast.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.